Sure, they're going to waste one here, you wouldn't think, not by design anyway. And the 0-2. Swing, there's a drive to left center field. That goes Soto, it's over his head. It's going to the wall and it'll clear the bases. 3-run score. Bradley following Holt and Moreland home. A 3-run double by Rick Porcello. Can you believe it?
We can believe it. Because this week on Crafting the Call, we are honoring and appreciating the 2024 Ford C. Frick Award winner, Joe Castiglione, longtime voice of the Boston Red Sox. Welcome in. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, voice of the Lansing Lugnuts.
And I'm Josh Suchon, voice of the Albuquerque Isotopes. And this week on Crafting the Call, Jesse, I always get excited when we can really appreciate a broadcaster who maybe we know a little bit of, maybe we've heard some of their big calls. But really, for me, as someone who grew up in California, I know of Joe, but I'm excited to learn more and really sink my teeth into what makes him so beloved by Red Sox Nation.
Yeah, let's listen to some great calls over the years. He came out of Hamden, Connecticut, and from there to Colgate, attained his master's from Syracuse, worked in Youngstown, Ohio, and then from Youngstown to Cleveland. He was the voice of the Cleveland Indians, then to the Milwaukee Brewers when they won their second half title, and then back to Cleveland before in 1983, the Boston Red Sox handed him a one-year contract, and that 1 year has turned into decades.
Isn't that something? A one-year contract, and it turns into decades like that too. You know, the main thing that when I think of Joe Castiglione is, to me, it's inspiring to other broadcasters that you don't need the big booming voice of John Miller, right? You don't need that baritone voice. It helps a lot. You don't need the silky smooth voice of Dave Fleming. Helps a lot. But I think that Joe is a really good example of just be yourself. This is who you are. This is who your voice is, and lean into it and just do the job the best that you can do. And whatever people have to say about your voice, so what? Let your work speak for itself.
I think that there are two things that quickly come to mind for me about Joe Castiglione. And the first is he modeled himself after Mel Allen. And I think that's something that you and I have to keep in mind over the course of this. We've earlier talked about Dave Niehaus, who modeled himself after Harry Carey, whom he grew up listening to. Mel Allen was verbose. It was all about the words that he chose in the moment. And the other thing is, Joe is a historian. He understands the people of the game, his relationships, his friendships, the folks who make the game over the years. He knows very well. And because of that, he's able to tell great stories. I met Joe in person in 2022 at a 3-game cup of coffee for the Oakland Athletics against the Red Sox. And Jared Koenig was the starting pitcher that day for the A's. And I happened to mention this. And he looked at me and he said, Koenig, like Mark Koenig. And suddenly we're getting transported back into, this is the infielder who had gone from the New York Yankees to the Chicago Cubs. Then the Cubs had said, we're not going to give you any of our World Series portions. And did that contribute to Babe Ruth and the called shot off Charlie Root? We're back in the 1930s. So that's what I think of as well with Joe Castiglione, is he has such a great sense for connecting the generations of baseball.
That's a really important skill of not just knowing baseball history, but connecting it in a way that makes it meaningful.
Yeah.
The idea that I have this knowledge and I just want to show off my knowledge, it needs to have a point. It needs to have a reason. Why does this matter? There's just this random factoid. Why does it matter? And so I think that's an important thing immediately that comes to my mind when you say that is for my own broadcasts. If I am bringing something from the past into today's broadcast, why? How can I make it relatable?
And if you're calling Red Sox games, you have to have a heart. You've got to be very smart. You've got to know your baseball, and you have to care. And he covered all of those things.
All right, so let's get into some of the best clips from the career of Joe Castiglione.
Mike Benjamin at third base. Nomar Garcia Power representing the tying run is at second base. John Valentin representing the winning run is at first base. Mo facing the left-hander. Wind blowing hard toward right. And the pitch. Swung and there's a drive to right field. Deep down the line. Right back. It is gone. A grand slam, and the Red Sox have won it on a Mo Vaughn grand slam in the ninth inning. The Red Sox come up with 7 runs in the ninth inning, capped by a Mo Vaughn grand slam, and Boston, with an incredible ninth inning rally, has won the opening game at Fenway Park 9-7. Can you believe it?
Oh, is Mo Vaughn being mobbed? I've seen it, and I still don't believe it.
The Red Sox send 7 men to the plate, and 7 men score in the ninth inning as Mo Vaughn hit an 0-1 pitch from Paul Skojeric past the pesky foul pole into the grandstand. About 15 rows back, and the Red Sox have pulled off a miracle at Fenway Park. An opening day miracle. They played well for 5 innings. Then it was a horror show for the next 3, but in the ninth, the Red Sox come up with 7 runs and beat Seattle 9-7. And this crowd, that part of which stayed here anyway, is absolutely stunned. Folk to the set. A 1-0 pitch. Here it is. Swinging a ground ball, stabbed by Folk. He has it. He underhands the first, and the Boston Red Sox are the world champions. For the first time in 86 years, the Red Sox have won baseball's world championship. Can you believe it? The Red Sox now mobbing Keith Folk and one another between home and first. And as Ned Martin said back in 1967, pandemonium on the field. The greatest victory in team history. Fittingly on the mound, trying to get the final out of this series. The pitch. Swinging a high fly ball, right center field. Coco going back, still going back to the triangle, going back. He makes a great catch in the triangle. Falls down, hangs on. The Red Sox have won the pennant. Coco Crisp with another sensational play in the triangle. Grabbed it over his shoulder, banged into the wall, and held on. And the Red Sox are mobbing one another by home plate. For the second time in 4 years, the Red Sox have won the American League pennant. Can you believe it? Applebaum sets at the belt. The pitch. Swing and a miss. It's over. The Red Sox have swept the Colorado Rockies. The Red Sox are the world champions of baseball for 2007. And the Boston Red Sox become the first team in the 21st century to win 2 World Series titles. Can you believe it?
All right, so that's 4 different calls there over the years. Jesse, what immediately stands out to you?
So let's go back to Mel Allen. It actually reminds me a little bit of Marty Brennaman. There's no letting the game breathe. There's no letting the fans come in. This is going to be Joe talking about what is on his mind, describing it, and then summing it up. So we're just going to get right into it. And it's very clear. There's also when he quotes Ned Martin, there's that connection to history that immediately goes right back to 1967. And he's got the words to immediately pull out. He lost a little bit of control with the Mo Vaughn homer, but he didn't with the big postseason wins, which I thought was fascinating. And with the Mo Vaughn homer, how great is his description? The horror show and all the fans who've left, just great cutting in. It's so honest, and I loved it. How about you?
Yeah, so that was the first thing that comes to mind, 1998. So honest. You have to remember the history of the Red Sox in 1998, right? This is before the curse is broken. It's a long time before the curse is broken. The Red Sox have not been doing very well, or their postseason trips have ended quickly. So the idea of a horror show, of the fans who stuck around, you can tell how cold it is on opening day based on all of the turtlenecks that are underneath jerseys and things like that. So yeah, I agree with you that he lost a bit of control on opening day. Personally, as a broadcaster myself, I know that opening day is one of the hardest for me because I'm just not in the flow of the season yet. My voice isn't quite ready. It hasn't built up the strength through the course of the season. I also wrote down a horror show. For the final out in 2004, 2 things struck me. Number one, how quiet it was in the background. Right? This is St. Louis, that it's almost like it's a funeral that's happening in the background. You could hear how quiet it was. And then the phrase stabbed by Folk. I think that was a really good description. And then you hear somebody in the background. I don't know if it's a fan. I don't know if it's the engineer. I don't know if it's a suit from WEEI, but somebody's getting really excited and screaming in the background.
It's such a great thing for us to be able to look at these different kinds of broadcast styles. Let's confront Joe Castiglione's voice.
Okay.
John Miller studied his voice, tried to figure out musically what could he do with the highs and lows. What is the voice capable of? There are other people like Gary Thorne, where you're just blessed with this gigantic, big bass voice that you can lean into. And then there's Joe, who doesn't have that. And there's none of this, what can my voice musically do? This is a man broadcasting to you the game. And once you are used to his voice, once you understand this is how Joe sounds, then it's just the game and you. And it's that pure broadcasting element, that pure baseball play-by-play.
So I'll be really honest. I'm self-conscious about my voice, right? I have some people who say, oh, yeah, I can tell you must be a broadcaster. You have a great voice. And I go, really? Then you must not work in broadcasting if you think that I have a great voice, right? And then people who do work in broadcasting might say, and I really nitpick my voice. And so I've also tried to, a combination of just accept this is who I am, but also what can I do in order so that I'm not so high pitched? And so when I listen back to some of my like walk-off home runs from earlier in my career, I kind of cringe. And what I've learned is that if I can punctuate the call, give myself these little pauses in between the words, and then I can just kind of talk in dots, then my voice sounds better. I don't get as high pitched. I also don't feel quite as exhausted as well at these calls. So I know that I'm constantly trying to think about how can I be deeper? How can I just not sound quite as nasally or as high pitched? And I don't know how good I'm doing at this, by the way, Jesse, but I know that it's something that I'm conscious of. And there's a part of me that wishes I wasn't so self-conscious about it. And then there's another part of me that would like work even harder to change my voice even more, if that makes sense.
I did not like how I sounded for the longest time. And I still have moments where I listen to my stuff this year and I go, I don't like that sound. I would artificially deepen my voice. I try to talk deeper. I would do all sorts of different things. For highlight calls, I would find different ways of punching because when I went up high, I didn't like how that sounded. And especially when you and I, when we're processing all sorts of different broadcasters, we'll listen to someone and we'll go, why can't I sound like that? Can I try to sound like that? What is it about this person's voice that I really like in contrast to my own voice? Whereas the answer is, and I talked to a broadcaster friend of mine years ago that made a huge difference on me. And he said, why do you not like your voice? Specifically, why do you not trust your voice? Trust your voice and go from there. And it's so clear from these clips. Joe trusts his voice. And so once you have that trust in your voice, once you have that trust in who you are, then the next step is finding the right words in the right moment. And that's what Joe has gotten to.
That's a really interesting point. And I think there becomes a certain level of trust, not just with your voice, but you trust that the audience accepts you for who you are, and vice versa. Yeah. You trust that the team accepts you, that the radio station management just trusts you for who you are and realizes, okay, he is who he is. I am who I am. And I'm just going to call the game now and not be fixated on the voice at all. And I think those are distinctions that just come with time with one team, time with just overall calling the games. The other thing you mentioned made me think of something too, Jesse, is for you and I, you know, we call games and sometimes we'll have like big crowds. And I'm really fortunate here in Albuquerque. Sometimes we'll get 12, 14, 15. We've had a little under 17,000 once, but those are still pretty rare. So those times where there's 35,000 at Fenway, 50,000 at Yankee Stadium, where they are just making so much noise that it can drown out your own voice a little bit. For those of us working in the minor leagues, we rarely have those opportunities. And so I think that your voice doesn't matter as much when there's that much going on in the background compared to 1,000 people in a ballpark.
The audio mix. I found that my voice is at the right place where noise swallows my voice up. If you and I are at a party, if there's any music, if there's tons of talking, I can't make myself heard. Now, I have relatives and friends who their voices knife right through. And you and I can think of broadcasters whose voices knife right through other sound, or it sails along the top of it, and you can always know exactly what they're saying. But, and there was a very early crafting the call that we did where you lauded the people in charge of the audio mix, whether it was the on-site engineer, the producer. That's where you really need a good person in charge of that to make sure that the audio level of the crowd and the audio level of the broadcaster, that the crowd does not stop you from understanding what the broadcaster is saying. You need the crowd. You can't have it be a ghost town, but the broadcaster should always be able to be understood and understood clearly.
I saw a clip recently, and it was a football broadcaster in the SEC. And I forget which team it was. I forget the broadcaster. That part doesn't matter. And it was one of those like inside the booth where it's a split screen. You see the action, and then you also see the broadcaster. And I noticed that the broadcaster was changing a knob as he was describing. And so I sent him a message, and I said, "What is it that you're controlling?" And he said that he was controlling the crowd mic. He said that when 90,000 people make that much noise at an SEC football game, he said, I have to turn it down or else people cannot hear me. And I was blown away on a number of different reasons. Number one, the fact that he had the presence of mind and the ability to grab the crowd mic, turn it down, still call the action, and just had the presence of mind to being able to do that. I was blown away, but I was also blown away by this is what it means to call football in front of 90,000 people. And the challenges and how different that is from calling a minor league baseball game in front of 2,500 people.
I constantly ride the crowd mic. I ride it up and down. I ride it for every single pitch. As the pitch comes in, I ride it hot and then I back it right away. So we are constantly making sure that the microphones, our fingers are on it and we're potting up, potting down. And if there's a big moment that we're potting up, or if the crowd is starting to encroach on us, we pot it a little bit lower. So yes, I'm constantly adjusting it. And I think I saw this from Kevin Harlan. I'm constantly adjusting my own headset mic. So if there's a big call, think about a singer where they bring the microphone closer or farther away from their mouth as they're projecting or getting. So I will adjust my microphone based on how much I'm projecting. Do I need it intimate? Am I getting super loud with it? So yeah, in a crucial moment, I can be writing both at the same time.
Okay, so this isn't about Joe Castiglione right now, but I'm fascinated by this and I want to learn more. So I have follow-up questions. Okay.
Yeah.
You use a headset.
Yes.
Okay, so you're using a headset. Do you move it away? Do you move it up? Do you move it down? Like, where do you move it when you're moving?
I go just away from the mouth. It's one of those where it's very easy. It can bend to and fro. So I just back it a little bit away from the mouth, however much I need, and then I bring it back when it's time. So
let's say it's the ninth inning and you know that we got a potential of like a walk-off right here. Are you kind of like your fingers are kind of close to your microphone in case you need to move it away from you as something big's about to happen?
Probably, but unconsciously so. In the moment, I'm thinking about other things, or I might have a pen in my hand. But in general, yes, I probably do have one hand on the crowd mic and ready, and I probably do have the other hand ready. So yeah, lefty, righty, and let's call this play.
Okay, so when I call a game, and I'm sitting in my booth in Albuquerque right now, so my computer's to my left, my equipment is to the right, my scorebook is in front of me, and I'm holding on to my pencil. And so if I were to go to try to adjust the crowd mic, I'd be kind of doing this. I'd be reaching across this way, or I'd have to drop my pen so that I'm doing this. Give me like your left and right, where you sit and where your hands are in order to be able to do all of this.
Well, it depends. Is the audio board to my right or to my left? Where I work at home, the audio board is to my left. But currently where I am on the road, the audio board is to my right. So it all depends upon, this is the hand that I need in this spot. In general, though, the microphone's coming down from the left ear, so it makes it easier with the left hand. And then if the audio board's on my right, then it comes to the right hand.
The whole game, you've got your left hand on the audio board. You've got your right hand on your pen as you're watching.
Yeah. But I want you to consider, when we talk, we do not talk at an even volume. And in general, in other audio boards, and depending on the situation, I might have compressed it. Our current audio board does not allow us to compress. But making sure that when you're talking louder, that you're not blowing things off, that you're not peaking, which still does happen, because you're going to talk louder for more exciting moments. So how do you take care when you get very loud to make sure that everything stays at a good audio level?
Apparently I'm not doing much. Crossing my fingers, hoping it sounds good.
Well, so to bring this back to Joe Castiglione, right?
Yes,
I'm listening for that. I'm going, what is his level? How loud does he get? And we do this with every single broadcaster that we come across. I love hearing when the moment is big, right? How fast is the broadcaster throwing? What's their MPH? Well, is this a broadcaster who shouts? Is this a broadcaster just goes up with their voice or stays low with their voice? What are they doing? And therefore, what does that require of the equipment? How does that work with the crowd? All of these different things to think about. With Joe, as we heard from the Mo Vaughn home run, he goes up.
And stays up.
Yeah.
And stays up for a long time. All right, let's get away from Josh and Jesse doing like really nerdy inside ball type stuff about their broadcast, and let's get back to Joe Castiglione, because I remember when I first started it as a broadcaster, and I'd ask someone to critique my demo reel. They would say, "Let me hear your first inning. I want to hear, how do you set the tone? How do you set the tone for the broadcast?" And so a lot of times I think about that for myself when I'm listening to younger broadcasters. How do you set the tone in the first inning? And that's going to lead into this next Joe Castiglione clip.
The windup in the first pitch of the ball game is a fastball in there for a call strike. From Japan, the pitch. Fastball in there, call strike 2. Wind out of the northeast at 23. Swing and a miss, strike 3. Got him on a changeup. Ichiro, one of the toughest men to fan. In fact, the toughest in the entire league last year, goes down on 3 pitches. The pitch. Swing and a miss at a good breaking ball. Pedro has thrown 4 consecutive strikes, deals, foul to the left of the screen, out of play. 20 strikeouts, 69 at bats. Check, swing, strike 3 over the outside corner. He threw him a sinking fastball down and away. Pedro's thrown 6 pitches and has 2 strikeouts. Here's the pitch, and it's in there for a call strike. Started him with a cutter. Outfield deep, the pitch. Over the outside corner with a fastball, strike 2 call. Pedro's 1 pitch away from striking out the side on 9 pitches. Crowd is standing already in the first inning. Pedro winds and deals. Swing and a miss, strike 3. He swung at a high fastball out of the strike zone, up and away. And Pedro Martinez, for the 4th time this year, K's the side, and this time he does it on 9 pitches.
Okay. That was an immaculate inning. Joe never used the phrase immaculate inning, which I'll be honest, immaculate inning is kind of a phrase that has kind of become more popular over the last 5 to 10 years. And what stood out to me about this is at the start of a broadcast, we kind of have like these mental checklists of things. We want to say the weather. We want to say the first pitch. We want to say any type of wind. We want to, just kind of invite people in and set the tone about all these different things that are happening. And even as the first batter, we hear the very end of the clip, winds are 23 miles an hour, whatever the number was, as Ichiro strikes out. As the inning progresses, you can see Joe's brain switch from this checklist of things that we like to do in the first inning. Maybe it's setting the defense. Maybe it's whatever else you might have. And he really starts to get locked in on 5 pitches, 5 strikes, 2 strikeouts on 6 pitches. Now it's 7. Now it's 8. And now it's 9. And I think it's a really good adjustment that he makes from what's really easy to do over the course of 162 games, which is do the same thing in the top of the first. And I think he does a really smart job of pivoting when he needs to pivot.
He's such a smart baseball guy and so instinctive. I agree. It's a little bit unfair because we don't hear everything else that he's saying in between each of the pitches. I love that he's identifying every pitch, which is difficult and I think important if you're able to do so, especially with a pitcher, in this case, Pedro, who it matters what pitches he's throwing and what results that he's getting from it. But yes, he understands the story of this half inning and he adjusts accordingly to great effect.
I've only had a couple of immaculate innings, and one of them was in the top of the first inning. And I remember being fairly proud of myself too, that I was able to recognize it right away, that I was keeping track, and that sometimes there becomes a little doubt that creeps in my head around strike 5 or strike 6, or I start to think, wait a minute, was there a foul ball? Was there a ball? Did I miss that? Let me kind of quickly cheat and look at game day to see if there was a pitch that I missed. I don't want to set the tone that this is an immaculate inning, and then as it turns out, I'm wrong about it. But I really think that immaculate innings are a fun way because they're so rare. And it's just sort of like a one-off that just happens very, very rarely. But I think it's a fun way to just really lock the audience into, let's really pay attention. to every single pitch here for a moment. And then once the immaculate inning is no longer, then it's very much like, okay, we can get back into, this is the outfield. This is the wind. This is the barometric pressure, right? This is what the forecast might be for the fourth inning, but we're going to lock in on these pitches.
It's such a beautiful build. It's something, a conversation I was having with broadcaster friends, where the argument was made, an immaculate inning, the fans don't know. The fans have their attention elsewhere. How are they going to know that it's now 7 pitches, 7 strikes? But that crowd at Fenway standing in the first and understanding that elevated the moment, and Joe was ready for it.
We had one earlier this year, a pitcher for the Isotopes by the name of Noah Davis. And in the first inning, he started off the game with 5 in a row, 5 straight strikes, including a strikeout, and then it got spoiled. And then later in the same game, he was 8 strikes in. He was 1 strike away. And so I'm building it up on the air, right? I'm saying that the Isotopes have never had an immaculate inning, that the opponents have had an immaculate inning, but the Isotopes never have. And I'm building it up and I'm building it up. And then I'm pretty sure that it was a ball. Maybe it was a foul ball. So there's that. And so the next day I interview Noah for the pregame show, and I asked him if he was aware of it. And he said he was not aware of it. He realized it in the first inning, but did not realize it in the 5th inning. And he said that he wondered why the catcher had such a dramatic reaction when he did not get the third strikeout on 9 pitches. And he said it didn't really dawn on him until he went back and he listened. And he said, I heard the way that you were building it up and trying to make it all, dramatic and everything. And so to me, it was kind of like one of these cool moments where like, okay, I did what I think is my job as an announcer. I built it up in the right way. I'm letting the audience know who's listening, whether they're on the internet TV, whether they're on the radio. Hey, let's all lock in together on every single pitcher for a moment to see if he can do this immaculate inning. And if he can't, all right, then we can go back to this easy breezy broadcast.
Yeah, that is the job of the broadcaster. That very much is that you've taken this half inning and you've said, hang on, sit up. We've got something. Here's the pitch. I would say that you did an excellent job. And I would think that that shows the value of a good broadcaster who's ready in the moment.
All right. Well, we've had a previous episode of Crafting the Call that was about specific types of plays. And now we're going to hear Joe Castiglione on the mic for another unique play in baseball, very specific, hard to anticipate. How do you handle the moment?
Ooh. Is it a pop out?
Ellsbury at third, leading off in foul territory. And here comes Ellsbury stealing home. He's done it, and he is safe. He stole home. 3-1 Boston.
He stole home. Jacoby Ellsbury stole home. And the other runners moved up on a triple steal.
A standing O for Ellsbury. He stole second earlier. Now he steals home.
Andy was in the stretch and didn't hear or see him, and he threw home late, and Ellsbury, in fact, stole home.
Can you believe it? It was a curveball. Posada took it behind the plate, tried to tag him, but he beat it with a head-first dive.
A curtain call for steal home.
A straight steal of home, a rarity in Red Sox annals.
I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but a year or two ago, somebody stole home against Pettit also. And I remember after the game, Andy was angrier about that than he was about anything else that happened the whole night.
I remember that because he never looked up. He went into his set, kept his head down, and did the same thing here. This place is going bananas, Joe. Listen to this. Listen to this.
A standing O for Ellsbury. He stole second earlier. Now he steals home. The third baseman's wide of the line, so he got a good lead, and he timed it well. Pettit working
I've never
from
seen
the
that.
windup.
So just a straight steal of home by Ellsbury, and Boston takes a 3-1 lead.
No, on the replay.
Okay, so that's obviously intercut with both the Red Sox calls and the Yankees calls. We hear John Sterling from the Yankees broadcast there. We hear a lot of Joe on the Red Sox broadcast. Pretty good editing there. So credit to that. Again, we did an entire episode about the straight steal of home, Jesse. And my biggest takeaways from that were, number one, if a guy is fast at third base, you need to be ready. You need to look at what type of lead he's taking. And if it's a left-hander who's got his back to the base runner, especially if he works from the windup, then those are moments when you can potentially do that. And I think in this clip of Joe, at the very beginning, we hear him say, Ellsbury taking his lead. So that tells me that when Joe is watching the game, he is not just looking at the batter. He's not just looking at the pitcher. He's not looking at his notes. He's not looking at his phone. He's not distracted. He's looking at the runner at third base. So he realizes maybe he's not thinking that Ellsbury is going to steal, but he's staying locked into the moment of who's at third.
Yes, he's in front, and he's ready for it because he's watching Ellsbury. I do have a quibble. John Sterling says triple steal. I don't know if Joe ever mentioned what happened to the other runners on this play. If everybody's stealing, triple steals are awesome. But no, he's right on it. He's right there with Jacoby rushing for the plate and being safe. And we see the voice rise with excitement. Let me add in too, his tagline, his line of, can you believe it? Which I should have mentioned earlier when we were going through play after play after play. The can you believe it works so well with the big moments like the Red Sox winning postseason series and winning the World Series. It works perfectly with this. Can you believe it? Jacoby Ellsbury just stole home.
If people didn't watch the episode about describing a great outfield catch, really the catchphrase became a big part of that episode.
Yes.
Being able to use a catchphrase that symbolizes, oh my goodness, something crazy just happened, whether it's can you believe it, whether it's holy Toledo, whether it's my oh my. These are the ways that the catchphrase, I feel like SportsCenter made catchphrases really popular, and then SportsCenter anchors made catchphrases like too hokey and over the top. But I think that when you, yes. And now I think that these are good examples of how catchphrases really do work.
Yes, and it buys you time. It allows you to express your disbelief. When words are taken from you, you still have words, and then you can go from there. And you can start talking about how special this is in the annals of Red Sox history.
All right. Well, speaking of special Red Sox annals history, we would be remiss if we did not have something from those Yankees-Red Sox epic postseason clashes. And so I'm just going to start from a certain game, and then we'll see how well Joe lets us know about what's going on. And then Jesse and I will pause and break down different things that we hear from one of the not most legendary, but one of the most legendary Yankees-Red Sox playoff games.
35,120 fans watching this one. On the edge of their seats, hoping the Red Sox can rally in the eighth inning. They trail 4-2. Neil Diamond, the staple here in the middle of the eighth inning. And Red Sox hope that will be heard again, but they'll have to rally.
Guess who's on his feet in the bullpen? 400 yards. If you said Mariano Rivera, you're right.
He took 40 pitches last night and getting charged with a blown save. Ortiz, Millar, and Nixon do against Gordon. Visit your Eastern New England Volvo retailers. Test drive the all-new V50 Sportswagen Volvo, the official car of the Boston Red Sox. Ortiz had an RBI single on the first, struck out twice. After that, swinging against Messina. Gordon from the belt delivers. And it's in there for a call, strike at the knees. A low fastball. I was below the knees. A generous call. 0-1. The Red Sox have had 6 hits. Just one extra base hit, a double by Bellhorn that was wasted. Rivera's not started to warm in earnest yet. Gordon delivers. Swinging a drive deep to left center, way back by the monster seats and gone. It hit the ball rope for right side. And it is 4-3 Yankees. David Ortiz with a tremendous home run. His second of the series, his third of the postseason, 4-3 Yankees.
There's a few things that I wrote down. The word generous, I like that word to describe an umpire maybe missing a call.
Diplomatic.
Another good word. Wasted. I like the word wasted. A Mark Bellhorn double was wasted. I think that's a smart word. And again, we go back to this is who Joe Castiglione is, right? It's about the vocabulary. And then earnest. Mariano Rivera has not started to warm up in earnest. Those are 3 really good words that he used that I like. I also wrote down live reads. I have a lot of live reads. I try to get them out of the way as fast as I can throughout the course of the broadcast. I don't want to bombard them so much that they're all gone by the 5th. But ideally to me, by the time that I get to the 7th inning, I only have 1 or 2 left. We are 2 hours and 42 minutes into this broadcast. I know that if I'm doing a postseason game, I want to get all of my live reads done quickly so they do not get in the way of these dramatic moments late in the game.
Well, there's also live reads for innings. This is for the 5th. This is for the 6th. This is going to be for the middle of the 8th. Of course. Sure. Let's go. Let's do it going to the bottom of the 8th inning. I'm sure that it's going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah, this is where you start to get into a fight with the ad people and the sponsors, which is a different conversation. I also liked how he mentioned the number of pitches that Mariano Rivera threw the previous game, right? So just to recap here, 2004, this is when the Yankees lead 3-0. The Red Sox stage the dramatic rally to tie it. There's the walk by Millar. Pinch runner Dave Roberts has steals second. There's the single by Bill Miller that ties it. David Ortiz hits the home run. They live to see another day. This is now the next day. It's game 5. And so Mariano Rivera threw 40 pitches the day before. It's still only game 5 of the series. I think those are important details that he's getting in at the right time.
I also think that he's grounding himself. It is very easy to go leaping up out of your seat on this David Ortiz home run. And he says the score twice. He says it very quick in the moment, 4-3. And then he comes right back to it. Here's the score as he slows himself down and eases right back into it. Because it is very easy to get overly excited on this, but you're still down by a run.
Okay, that's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought it up because in the moment you say the score. Let's think about the audience of Red Sox Nation at the time, okay? You're in your car. You're in the backyard, wherever it is that you're listening to Joe, and you hear this home run. You start going nuts. You probably may not even hear the score because you're cheering. Maybe you forget the score. And now you hear how much excitement there is. It's really easy to think David Ortiz just tied it again. No, he didn't. Red Sox are still down by 1 run. So I think that when there is a dramatic home run, you need to have the score in your call, and then you need to quickly, I mean, in general, you should always be saying the score as often as possible. But I think you need to keep reminding people 15 seconds later, 45 seconds later, this is what the score is after this home run.
There's an argument to be made to wait to give the score after a scoring play a little bit, because you do have the description that you can add in, but the crowd's emotion, this gets us right back into the crowd sound. The crowd is going to be in a frenzy. And so it's gone. Let the crowd go wild. And then here's what happened. Here's the home run. Here's the score when you have a moment. But with Joe in this moment, homer, immediate giving of the score. And then as we're settling down and he's giving his really good description of what happened, where that home run went. All right, let me give you that score again. This goes into, this is Mel Allen's style. Mel Allen's style is you don't take a breath. You don't take a break. Very highly intelligent, as you said, with the word choice, but we're going to keep on talking through.
I think sometimes you have to lay out for the crowd because you can't hear the announcer anyways when Fenway's making that much noise. All right, so we're going to continue with this inning, and I think it's really interesting too when we listen to this inning about what life was like before the pitch timer, which we are going to find out here.
Oh,
A monster shot.
He is really something. David Ortiz has signed a multi-year contract this year with the Red Sox. He has come up with some of the biggest hits over the last 2 years for the Red Sox.
He has 8 RBIs in the series, 12 on the postseason. 3 home runs overall in the post. And here comes Millar. Walk, reached on an error, and grounded into a force. Here's the pitch. He swings and misses at a high pitch up and away. That was a cutter. David Ortiz really hit a bomb. He got a fastball, middle out, about waist high, and almost hit it to Kenmore Square. The Volvo for Life sign kept it in the park. Fired up the Red Sox bench and this crowd of 35,120. Gordon is at the belt. Here's the pitch. Check swing. He went around on a hard cutter down and away. Rivera warming with more earnest now. Kevin Millar behind in the count. He had a home run earlier this year off Gordon. 4 for 14 in his career. Outfield straight away on Millar. Walked to set up the tying run last night. Nixon to follow. The 0-2 pitch. In the dirt.
1-2. He threw him that big breaking ball that bounced in front of the plate. Nixon next, then Veritek. David Ortiz. He has been something. Keith Polk, by the way, has stranded all 7 inherited runners in the postseason. He got a big out in the top of the inning. 1-2 to Millar. And he backs out as Gordon takes too much time. Ortiz has led off the 8th inning with a long home run. Hit the Volvo for Life sign and ended up in the monster seats. 1-2 to Kevin Millar. He represents the tying run. Gordon deals. He bounced it in there. 2 balls, 2 strikes to count. 4 runs, 9 hits, an error for the Yankees. They've stranded a dozen. Red Sox 3 runs, 7 hits, no errors. They have stranded 7. Tremendous tension here at this great edifice. The pitch. Outside, he missed with a cutter. So it was 0-2. Millar has worked the count full.
He worked a big walk in the bottom of the 9th last night.
That was against Rivera, who continues to warm. Millar out of the box, now takes a practice swing with that open stance. Gordon waiting for him. Thomas Gordon comes to the stretch, and now Millar backs out, trying to upset his timing perhaps. He adjusts the batting gloves. 3-2 to Kevin Millar. Now Gordon comes to the belt. The kick and the pitch. Low, he walked him. He missed down and away. Threw a low fastball. The tying run is on. Trop Nixon is coming up. And Rivera has not thrown too many warm-up pitches. He may be conserving them because he did throw 40 pitches last night. And here's Dave Roberts to run for Millar. We'll see what that means.
All right. Next thoughts so far, Jesse.
Well, after you said pitch clock, then I started timing it. And I had about 27 seconds in between pitches, except for the 2 where the batter stepped out. And then it turned into about, I'm going to say 45 to 50 seconds. So then I started thinking, all right, so how is Joe filling this time? How's he filling this excess time? And there is the runs, hits, and errors, which I think is a broadcaster's tool. Whenever you're not sure what to say, hey, let's reset that. But just talking about the moment and talking about these players, it's so easy for me to listen to this, Josh. It's highly listenable, and he's keeping it very level the whole while. I find it engaging. How about you?
Glad you brought up the runs, hits, errors, left on base. It's really easy as a broadcaster to just run through those, a bunch of numbers, right? 4 runs, 8 hits, 2 errors, 11 left on base. 3 runs, 7 hits, 2 errors, 1 left on. But he says they've stranded a dozen. It's letting you know as an audience, the Yankees have wasted a lot of opportunities without having to say the Yankees have wasted a lot of opportunities. At one point he said, tremendous tension at this great edifice. Just a beautiful phrase, right? Just a beautiful phrase. I would have paused even more after saying tremendous tension and just let the crowd fill that gap for a little bit longer.
But that's not the Joe Castiglione style.
Right, yes. All right, let's get back to it.
Here comes Mel Stottlemyre out.
Talking about trying to hold Roberts on. Roberts stole second, and he stole against Rivera last night on a pitch that was pretty easy for the catcher. It was a straight fastball up and away, and he still beat the throw. And Dave told us before the game today, he said the 3 pickoff throws by Rivera actually helped him because it helped him warm up, loosen up. And now he's doing some stretching as the conference goes on the mound. He's doing some running down the right field line. He's had 2 big steals against the Yankees.
Gordon is very poor at holding base runners.
Plus, he can bounce that hard cutter of his.
Might take it away.
And he's just walked him, man. You wonder if they would call a pitch out. Now right, Trot Nixon is the batter. Tying run at first. Roberts running for Millar. Trot grounded to first, forcing runner at the plate, struck out and line to center with Bernie Williams robbing him. Nixon facing Gordon, 1 for 5 in his career against Thomas Gordon. Roberts with a good lead. Clark holding him on. Gordon sets. Delivers. He doesn't go, and it's in there for a call strike. To a fastball right down the middle. Roberts inching off first. Veritek on deck. Then Miller. Roberts is the tying run. Rivera to the Gordon to the set. Throws to first, and he dives back. Rivera continues to stand. He's not really thrown many pitches out there.
I think he's conserving all the bullets he can.
Roberts leading off first. He's caught stealing only 3 times all season. The stretch. And Gordon, with that Heisman move, looks him back to first. Dave Roberts had not appeared in the series till last night. And he stole the bag. Hasn't had an at-bat in the postseason. He's got a good lead. 0-1 the count. Gordon ready. Throws to first, and he dives back with a hand tag. That's not a very quick move.
Pretty low throw. Pretty low throw. Joe West likes to call balks, too. He's the first base umpire.
And they'll be watching, make sure he comes to a stop when he goes to the set, doesn't try to quick pitch. Roberts leading away. He's got a decent lead. He had a great jump, he told me last night when he stole the bag. Gordon at the belt. Long pause. Still holding it. Nixon granted time.
Lou Brock and the great base stealers. Maury Wills will tell you that it really bugs them when pitchers would hold the ball. That's the best way to make a base stealer edgy. Just hold the ball, disrupt their time, and they're anxious to run.
Stole 38, was caught 3 times in the regular season. Here's the set, and he steps off again, looking Roberts back to first. Posada out to talk to Gordon. There's no question that Gordon is distracted.
No question.
There's no question also that Rivera's conserving those pitches out there. And he threw 40 last night. Corey said right after the game he'd be ready to pitch, but the question is how long can he go? 4-3 Yankees. Nobody out. Runner at first in the 8th. Go to first. He dives back with a hand tag. That's 3 throws and 3 step-offs.
At the same time, you might think a hitter like Nixon becomes a little more over-anxious.
Gordon at the belt. He doesn't go. The pitch is down and in. Nice stop by Posada. He had a backhand it down around the back foot of Nixon, who jackknifed out of the way. As we mentioned last night, Rivera threw over 3 times before Roberts took off. Then Jones, the first base coach, says something to him with a stopwatch in hand. 1 ball, 1 strike, the count. Gordon looking in. Coming to the set. He doesn't go. The pitch is low. Give him a hard cutter down and in. 2-1. Roberts really did not get much of a jump there, but he started back, actually.
He may be, if he's going to run, he may run here. They're not going to pitch out on the 2-1 count to Nixon. So just the threat of Roberts running may be enough to distract Gordon, so he may stay there as well.
Roberts moving off the bag. 2-1 to try a disciplined hitter. The set by Gordon. He doesn't go. The pitch is low. 3-1. Dropped by Posada, kept it in front. Veritek on deck. Gordon slaps at the return toss. Well, he was ahead of Millar 0-2 and walked him. Now he's 3-1 to Nixon.
Now A-Rod comes in to talk to Gordon, and then we can see Mel Stottlemyre in the dugout motioning to Gordon, just settle down, settle down. They need to nurse Gordon through this 8th inning. I don't think they want to use Rivera here, who now starts throwing again in the New York bullpen.
Gordon's thrown 18 pitches. 9 strikes, 3-1 to count. Roberts leading at first. Gordon to the set. He goes. Swinging a line drive, base hit, right center field. Roberts is on his way to third. He's in there standing. The tying run is at third. The go-ahead run is at first. With nobody out in the 8th inning and Jason Varitek coming up. Trot Nixon delivering on a 3-1 pitch with Roberts taking off, and he hit a rocket between the second baseman and the second base bag into right center.
How far down the line will Joe Torre go with Tom Gordon? He's talking it over right now with Stottlemyre in the dugout, as that was a cutter that stayed up for Nixon, and he lined it for a solid base hit.
Bernie Williams had no chance at third with Roberts going. And here is Jason batting right-handed against the right-hander Messina for the first time. Walk, struck out, and grounded to third. So that'll do it for Gordon. And
all right, so we're going to pause it here for there's going to be a pitching change. It's interesting to note they do not go to a commercial break during this pitching change. We're going to scrub it forward a little bit. But other thoughts that you have about that at bat so far, Jesse?
This is Jerry Trupiano, right? Working with Joe Castiglione. I really enjoyed Jerry's work. There were a couple of human moments here from Joe that I appreciated. Like when he started to talk about Tom Gordon and he used Rivera's name instead because Rivera is clearly on his mind. Freudian slip. That happens to a broadcaster. I loved him calling Gordon Thomas Gordon. Remember that Flash Gordon had been with the Boston Red Sox some years before. They know Tom Gordon in Boston. Joe especially knows him, and here he is. It takes forever for Gordon to make any pitches to Trot Nixon. You said it. We did need a pitch clock.
I'm glad you mentioned Jerry Trupiano. He had 2 really good points. He said that Gordon is poor at holding runners on base. That sets the tone for this long, drawn-out step-off throws over. He also mentioned that Joe West likes to call balks. Those are 2 really good, observant plays. And I think that at one point it was Joe who followed up Jerry's point by saying that because of all of this, it might eliminate a pitch from Gordon. They kept using cutter. When I think of Tom Flash Gordon, I think of that curveball. So I don't know if they're confusing the curveball with the cutter or whether Flash didn't throw the curveball much. But that's what I remember as a kid, is that big curveball from Flash Gordon. Even when Joe says he doesn't go, I think that becomes a big part of the story. Dave Roberts had this legendary stolen base the night before. He's used as a pinch runner again. I think there's twice that he says he doesn't go. And another time I think he mentioned a Heisman move from Gordon as he steps off.
Yes.
So I think it's a very challenging moment for a broadcaster because there is so much tension, but nothing is happening.
Not a single thing. And so it is all about Joe and Jerry going back and forth and filling in all of this deadness. And the fans are having to keep the energy high, but you can understand why, because there is your potential game-tying run. It's really fascinating. It's an astonishing amount of things going on. It reminds me of a Tarantino movie where there's tons of people talking and you just know at some point everyone is going to start firing away, but you don't know when that's going to be.
So I've never listened to an extended amount of Joe Castiglione until right now, which is why I love what we do here on Crafting the Call.
Yeah.
What I do remember about watching all of these games at home was how much Joe Buck and Tim McCarver did not talk. They just laid out during all of these really long sequences when nothing was happening. And the director just kept finding fans who were nervous Nellies, who were like this, who were praying, who were tension, to the point where you saw the same fans over and over again that my friends and I started to name these people. We just started to come up with nicknames for who these people are and trying to invent stories in our own mind about where these fans live and what their story is and why they keep showing them. So what happens next on the radio broadcast is that Mariano Rivera gets brought in, and I'm going to scrub it forward because Joe and Jerry have to basically kill another 4 minutes of time of recapping what happened without going to a commercial break. And so we will not go to a commercial break, but I am going to scrub ahead here until the time that Mariano Rivera is done warming up, unless you've got something else here.
No, you scrub ahead. I will talk to kill time while you're scrubbing ahead. Because here's the big key. We are talking about the different generations of baseball on the radio, right? And this is a very important time. So this is 2004. You as a broadcaster, you have to be able to kill time. You have to be able to talk while nothing is happening, which is very different from, let's say, the 1940s, 50s, 60s, when there's just constant things happening. I remember it was 2021. We're coming back from the pandemic and nothing was happening. And the games would go 3 hours 30, 3 hours 40 minutes. And you'd be like, it's a 5-3 game. Why are things taking so long? I would listen back to historic baseball broadcasts just to say, what would these guys talk about in order to kill time? And I learned they wouldn't have to. The half inning was done in 4 or 5 minutes. So this is an important snapshot of, if you're broadcasting at this time, you have to be a great listen. You have to be able to carry this until the next play happens, until the next pitch happens, and maybe nothing might happen there. So it really does take you, and it had to be it had to be emotionally exhausting. It had to have drained your thoughts by the end.
All right. I think Mo has done one.
Never seen.
It is Billy Joe.
Yeah, he may be trying to conserve a little bit here. All right, here is Jason. Roberts running for Millar. He is at third base. Kapler running for Nixon is at first base. 4-3 Yankees. Nobody out, last to the eighth. 1 run is home on an Ortiz home run. Jason setting himself in the batter's box. Again, the first time he's hit left-handed today after batting right-handed against the righty Messina. Rivera to the set. Here's the pitch. And it's high and away, ball one. That staggered Posada. It almost took off over his glove.
92-mile-an-hour cutter.
The infield is back. They'd give up the tying run for a double play with nobody out. Outfield straight away. He's ready. The 1-0. Down and in, backhanded by Posada. He didn't count the number of warm-ups he took in the bullpen because it's difficult to do with you're looking at home plate, but he didn't throw very many pitches.
Did mostly standing around out there. He may be out there on pure guts right now.
2-0. Rivera ready. The 2-0 to Jason. Swing and a high fly ball to center field. This should tie the game. Bernie Williams is under it. He's got a weak arm. He comes in, makes the catch. Roberts tags and scores, and we're tied at 4. Roberts goes in with a pop-up slide, though there was no throw. But he has scored the tying run for the second straight night, so Rivera gets another blown save. 4-4 the score as Jason drives in his 5th run of this series, his 7th of the postseason. Make that his 6th run because he had a bases-loaded walk earlier.
So Pedro Martinez off the hook for no decision tonight for Pedro.
All right, so I'm going to pause it there. Did switch hitting Jason Varitek decide to bat right-handed against right-handed Mike Mussina in this series, and I'm forgetting it? Or is this one of those human moments where kind of forgot what side of the plate he batted?
I'm hurriedly looking this up because I do not recall that either. Yes,
Anyway.
Here it is. Jason Varitek, Game 5 of the 2004 ALCS, batted right-handed against Mike Mussina.
Okay. That's fascinating, but I don't want to dwell on that.
Wait. How about how much they dwelled on all of Mariano Rivera's lack of warm-up pitches? Because that was a continuing source of conversation this whole inning, was that Rivera is not throwing warm-ups. He is conserving himself.
I think it's an important storyline that they were mentioning in light of the fact that he threw 40 pitches the night before. It was very clear. Joe Torre did not want to go to Mariano Rivera in the 8th inning. He wanted Tom Flash Gordon to pitch the 8th and just have Rivera pitched the 9th inning. But he got to a point in this inning when he realized that he had no choice, that he needed to go with his best guy, and he's just going to go with Mo, and maybe he can get the final 6 outs of this game and not give up any runs, and they can go on to the World Series, or maybe he's at least going to keep it tied and that they can figure things out. But I think it's also an example of when there is so much dead time because of all the step-offs and no pitch timer, you're trying to fill the broadcast with something, right? And
it's like the Joe and Jerry podcast.
Yes. I also enjoyed the fact that Castiglione just threw in that Bernie Williams has a weak arm as the ball is in air. Here's a fly ball to center field. Williams is underneath it. He's got a weak arm. Right? Like immediately.
Just buried him. But those details, there's such great details that he inserts in here and there. Just here's a detail. Here's a detail. I love that. As in, don't worry about Dave Roberts.
Yes, me too. And I also think that this is where when you work for Fox, maybe you're not gonna do it that way. When you work for the Red Sox fans are like, yeah, Bernie has a weak arm. Like that's the way that the audience appreciates that. So we're not going to listen to the rest of this half inning. Mo gets the next 2 outs. It's tied. The game keeps going on and on and on until the 13th inning. And the Red Sox win in 13 innings. And then they win Game 6 in New York. And they win Game 7 in New York. And they go on to the World Series. Spoiler alert, this happened a long time ago. But now that we've listened to an extended amount of Joe with Jerry Trupiano, give me some of your other just like overarching thoughts here about this.
That he's conversational. That everything about this is conversational and that it's detail-oriented. It's where are the fielders, where are the infielders. There's such an old-school nature to it, which we might say, well, of course there is. He first started broadcasting for the Red Sox in 1983. He had been in the major leagues for several years, so he's now past 4 decades. Why shouldn't there be this old school? But I use old school to mean that it's that 1950s, 1960s, 1970s sensibility that he has brought it in here. Even as he's breaking things down, even as he's being so detail-oriented that he is telling you what kind of pitches are being thrown, that everything is built from this foundational base, and that throughout this, that he constantly has things to say. How about with you?
When we listen to the 1986 World Series, Game 6, and we listen to the Red Sox, Ken Coleman at the time, we listen to the Mets, we listen to the national broadcast, and we compared and contrast that episode. And that was, we really got into, is there a sense of doom and gloom about what's about to happen to the Red Sox based on their history? And let's not forget 2004. The year before was the Aaron Boone home run, right? That's when Aaron Boone made the famous comment and the post-game celebration when he said something along the lines of, Derek Jeter always said, just keep it close and then the ghosts will come out for us, right? So there is just this sense of, once again, the Red Sox hearts are about to be broken. They were broken last year. The team was down 3-0. Okay, they won Game 4 in dramatic fashion. But now does this just mean that their hearts are going to be broken again? And I didn't sense any of that from Joe. I just sensed a really solid, professional broadcast where we hear what's going on in the background. We hear the stakes. We understand the potential moves that are happening. I didn't hear this over-the-top eagerness. Oh, my goodness, can you believe what's about to happen? And I didn't hear this, oh, we're about to get our hearts broken again, which is what Red Sox fans were probably thinking. They were very much excited. Hey, we've got a chance. We're going to finally do this. But also, they're just setting us up to crush us again, right? And so all of that, I think, just leads to a really level-headed broadcast right now.
It's so smart. And I want you to consider, too, Aaron Boone beats Tim Wakefield. In this game, the Red Sox go to Wakefield out of the bullpen. He fires 3 scoreless innings. He's the winning pitcher when the Red Sox win on the Ortiz walk-off single. So the Red Sox are not scared of the ghost this year. In 1986, what really struck me was hearing young Joe and how smart he was, because he's working with Ken, and every single time that we heard his voice, I was thinking, that's a really good point. That's a really good observation. And so having him here at the wheel with Jerry Trupiano riding sidecar and looking back to yesterday, looking today, looking out in front of us because we know that Rivera is a threat to be brought in. Are they going to go to him? It's so fun for me to hear him and his broad scope that he is processing everything, because he really is processing.
All of which is to say, he's a Hall of Famer. This is why he's going into the Hall of Fame, why he's the Ford Frick Award winner for 2024. Congratulations to Joe Castiglione. I hope this episode has helped our audience appreciate him, because I know it's absolutely allowed me to appreciate him more.
And we will continue to appreciate him. That's the fun of when you honor a broadcaster who's still broadcasting games. You can honor him, and then you can go, all right, I'm going to tune into your next broadcast. That's the fun of this. Josh, thank you very much for taking the time to discuss and appreciate Joe Castiglione.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. For Josh Suchon, the voice of the Albuquerque Isotopes, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, voice of the Lansing Lugnuts, and this is Crafting the Call. We'll see you next week.